Hello and welcome back to Grapple Theory. Thanks so much for joining us once again today. Now today, our special guest for the second week running is one of the owners of one of the biggest and best promotions currently going in BritWres. They're really shining a light on the northeast of England. It's fantastic to see. I'm sure plenty of you already know who I'm talking about just from those hints. We're going to be talking a bit of fantasy booking. We're going to be talking about some of the pillars of the promotion. We're going to be talking about people who have left, people who have come, new people coming into the promotion. We're going to be talking about the fact they've been going for 6 years, despite some rocky beginnings at the first. That's quite an interesting chat. You'll have to stick around for that part especially. And we'll be talking about loads more to do with the current and future state of British wrestling as well. It's my pleasure to welcome to the show Andy Bowers from North Wrestling, all caps, of course. Andy, thanks so much for coming on the show. Talk to us first about how the year started for you. We're a few months in now. I suppose you're already just sort of carrying over that momentum from last year.
Yeah, I think so. I think it seemed this. Well, we came back in August. I know there's a couple of shows that came back August 2021. There was a couple of shows that came back before that. So I think, yeah, it kind of still feels like we're in that year, I guess. Even though, like, I mean, what is time nowadays?
It still feels like 2020. It's just ridiculous. It's mental.
Yeah, I can't really remember what happened in 2021. Like when people talk about lockdowns, like there was obviously 3-ish lockdowns, although the northeast was locked down for quite some time. In the middle, when people talk about that May lockdown, I'm like, is that 2020 or was that 2021? Like, I can't remember.
Did this happen in this lockdown or this one or
yeah, exactly. So I think so I think it's kind of like we've done 4 shows now since we came back. The first 3 in 2021. They kind of feel like we're in the same year or the same whatever time frame we're currently working in. But yeah, so we've pretty much rolled into 2022 with quite a bit of momentum, really. We've sold out the last 4 shows. 5 was the one before the pandemic. Was the first show that we'd ever sold out, really. It was a different venue and it was a much less smaller capacity that we had there. I think it was 180. So whereas now we're getting 260, 270, 276 at the last show. So yeah, it's really good. Like, yeah, the momentum seems to be really moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and that must be really pleasing as well in terms of coming back from so long without wrestling to know that there's that demand there for you guys to be around, and the fact that you're selling out shows, and if anything, you've probably gained more momentum.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think I'm not going to jump straight into the speaking out stuff, but yeah, speaking out and pandemic and that kind of June 2020 all the way through till I would say I think we all started coming out of lockdown maybe like May 2021. I think it was, well, May or April, I can't remember when it was. And honestly, for a big period of time, we weren't going to come back. It just seemed like it was way too much of a effort. We lost the venue as well. Again, due to their own. The venue owners had their own kind of Me Too incident, so we walked away from that venue, which had been our home for like 5 years.
Yeah, that was Riverside, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And obviously, there's only so much I can say about about that, but you can go and find out why we walked away from that if you need to. But it was the right decision to do it. I think, to be honest, it was probably the right thing to do anyway. But we were then stuck in this like. Before coming back to shows, at this point, I was just going, I don't think I've got the ability to bring a wrestling show back. I didn't see a clear path forward. So to be able to get there and get the help and reach out to other promotions and talk to other promoters as well and look at what they were doing and copy is probably a word people don't like to use, but we were copying what people were doing. Like, I think it was important to do that. But then we did our own work as well, obviously. So then we added to that, and I feel that's kind of the good promotions, the good ones that are kind of doing the right thing. Have kind of all mishmashed the best bits of what everyone's doing, and we all seem to be doing the similar things. So yeah, I think it was. It's really nice to see where we are now because it has been. It's been hard work, but it's been a real team effort, and it's been more me letting go of it just being a one-man band to going like, actually, I need a team of people to kind of help me with it, and that's definitely the case now. There's whilst I'll make the decisions, there's definitely like a team of people I'll take. I'll have conversations with and take ideas from and take help from. I think that's the key one, is taking help from.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nice to get to that point now.
No, for sure, and it's nice as a fan to hear you say that and see that you guys are really sort of again gaining momentum and thriving now. And again, you sort of picked up on speaking up, but we'll sort of get into the negative now, get it all out of the way, and then we can go into the more positive after.
Yeah.
But in terms of that, and you mentioned coming back, I mean, just in terms of, again, other wrestlers and promoters we've spoken to, there seems to have been just that whole sort of June 2020 period really jaded a lot of people in terms of their views on the wrestling industry. You know, even people inside the wrestling industry. I mean, especially people inside the wrestling industry. And everyone seems really jaded and stuff. Does it feel almost cathartic in a way, being back now, seeing that it looks like hopefully things are getting better as well, and that the scene is sort of getting back to thriving a bit?
Yeah. Yes, it does. It is cathartic. But like, I'm not going to say it's without trepidation. I think we're all, well, I say we're all, I can only speak for myself and the people that I speak to on the scene. We're all, very vigilant now, and like, we know where to go if there's any issues. I've kind of seen it as like a three-way. It was a three-way issue. Yeah, promoters were kind of at the heart of that, and promotions are at the heart of that, because that's where shows happen and where everyone's brought together. So there is an onus on us as a promoter, and I think if you're getting into the industry, there is a responsibility for you to kind of equip yourself in a way that protects everyone that you bring together. If you're going to put together a show and, dare I say, profit off a show, you have a responsibility to everyone that you're bringing through the door. However, there's obviously a responsibility with wrestlers as well. So I think we've seen more wrestlers kind of just professionalize the way that they work and the way they talk, and obviously we saw like a large chunk of the, for want of a better phrase, the wrong uns. Like we had a large chunk of them have disappeared, and you'd be remiss to completely think that there's not going to be another bad person into wrestling. I kind of think it's quite naive to think that it's going to be pure and plain sailing from here on in. It won't be. Like, there will be another incident, but it's then the kind of third element of that is then the fan base as well. Now, I don't know any other fan base for anything else which is as kind of fervent and invested and passionate, but with that you then you do get a fan base really connected in, maybe a little bit, I dare I say too connected in to what is a cottage kind of amateur industry. We all have day jobs. There's not many people doing this professionally. So that, you get, everything's really close. And unfortunately, what was happening, I think the way I see it, was there was a lot of shadows created in that. And you were then having people who were operating in that shadows and manipulating people to allow themselves to do that. So I think I've been in the industry now for like 6 years coming up in July. And there's people who have probably been the same or a bit longer who would definitely say they just didn't see half of the stuff that was going on. Like it was, and that does make you jaded. And it makes you question your own judgment and your own sense of like,
almost like a how did I not know about it sort of thing.
Without a doubt. And I think that was that's the toughest thing to deal with. And that, a lot of people had to look at themselves in the mirror and say, I certainly did, and I put my hands up and say, was I really taking enough responsibility in terms of that safeguarding, and did I realize how much responsibility that had to be put on that? How much time should be put into that? No, like I didn't, and I don't think anybody else did really either, and neither did I have at that time access to resource to be able to do that. It was really, really tough, and I think a lot of people were jaded after. I certainly was. But I think what you're now seeing is people who are better equipped. We certainly feel better equipped. I think that one of the best things that we ever did was reach out and say, look, we don't have a safeguarding officer. We don't know anyone. I've spoken to the Iron Craft Trust, and I ran through a safeguarding course myself through my work, so I had a better idea of what safeguarding consists of and what it means. But safeguarding isn't what people thought safeguarding was. If that makes
I understand.
It's safeguarding is children, safeguarding adults and vulnerable children, or people in a vulnerable position who are vulnerable to that. So I do feel in the wrestling industry we had to take a step further than that as well, and really understand how we could deal with dispute, how we could deal with incidents that happen at the show, how we can deal with a reporting kind of mechanism, so people can feel like they can report any issues to people properly and deal with it in a proper manner, not in this thing where, and this is the key to it, I think, where the promoter's king. I'm not king. Like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just organising the show.
Yeah.
However, I need to make sure that I've put in place the right processes to make sure that the people can be safe, things can be reported. So the best thing we ever did was reach out, find a safeguarding officer. We found Joe Kerwin, who's he's a Labour MP around here, Monkston North, which is where I grew up. And he's the corporate parent for like corporate parent, and he's the lead safeguarder in the whole of the county that we live in. So he's genuinely someone who knows how to deal with this stuff.
Sure.
And I think that was the most important move that we ever made, because we've been able to move through incidents, understand what my responsibility is and how I can enact that, but then also like empower people in the crowd, in the audience, to enact on situations themselves as well. And we can deal with this in a more positive way. We can remove more of the shadows, I think, that were created in the past, and hopefully just ultimately we can prevent all of ourselves falling in that place where we just all felt jaded and disappointed and let down and sad and you know, just terrified, you know, of what this thing that we all love like had operating within it. So yeah, do I feel like it's cathartic? Not necessarily cathartic, but just more. I just feel more equipped to deal with stuff. But I'm not naive enough to think that something won't happen again.
No, sure, absolutely. But it's small steps, isn't it? It's small steps to change, and as long as change is happening, that's always good.
Exactly, and as long as you've got the right people using the right lines of communication with the right intention, I think then you know, we can be more positive than we were, you know, June 2020 or even a year ago.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. Well said. And I wanted to get into your former venue. We're not going to talk about the negatives around it. I more want to know about, in terms of the transition now to getting to Anarchy. In terms of, you know, how do I put it without, like, obviously we're not condoning anything that happened with your former venue or anything, but in terms of that being sort of like home for you guys for so long, is Anarchy now starting to have that homey feel, starting to feel like that new base for North?
Yeah, without a doubt. And to be honest with you, Riverside were always great with us. They were that really was our home, and like they let us just do whatever we wanted to do. So the guys who worked at Riverside, the general manager Izzy, or she was the general manager for a while towards the end, and all the staff that worked there were absolutely fantastic. Like they were great people. So that place really did become home, and it was like the idea of moving away from it was like pretty terrifying, because we had just become so like, it's like repotting a plant, isn't it? Yeah, like if you don't do it at the right time and you don't like set the right soil and all of that, you know, it could really be of detriment. But we've moved into a place that has, if we're just thinking of it from a production level, it's just so much easier to work in. It's a big square.
Yeah.
Like, whereas the Riverside had its benefits. It looked really cool and like had a balcony and you know, but it was really squashed in. It's for gigs, really. It was absolutely just for gigs, and there wasn't a lot of space once you got the ring in there. So I think to be able to move into Anarchy, and let me say though, like the guys at Anarchy have just been fantastic. Like they've been absolutely brilliant. Scott there, who's like he runs like the tap room in which we operate in. They're just like, it's like nothing's a problem, and we've had like new lights put in, and we've kind of taught them a little bit about it. But it's brilliant. It's a brilliant place, and I think it's allowed us to expand further to get to where we are in terms of capacity. Like you know, there's no other mid-sized venue in Newcastle. If anyone's ever promoted or ran gigs or done anything in Newcastle, they will know like there's just a dearth of mid-sized venues that don't have a roof that's like this big, which is the hardest thing to find. Is like a mid-sized venue, say something that's like 500 capacity with a big ceiling. It's just impossible. So to find this place was just brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's starting to, again, for you guys and for fans, it's starting to have that, like, that homey feel now for you guys.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the one thing that we've been like really, I think is so important is a show should be its own unique individual destination to come to. So that's from, like, I work in branding, like I run a creative agency, so I know how important it is to look different from everyone else. Now, I'm sure there'll be loads of people who kind of argue, well, actually, you're an alternative looking kind of wrestling show, which is, there's a lot of them, but I do think we have a very specific look to what we do. I think we've got a very specific kind of, we have a very specific show as well. I think our show is quite different. I think you look at like other places around the country, I think Resurgence are like that. I think people like Graps do that. They do that really, really well as two, where I think they're just specific. You're going to go to that show and you're going to see a Resurgence show.
Yeah.
So I think with North, that's what we've tried to do as well. And I think the venue really lends itself to, when you see it on video, you're like, I know exactly where that is. I know whose show that is. So yeah.
No, that's exactly it, isn't it? It's like you look at other promotions. You mentioned Resurgence, but even like TNT and Catch and Eve when they had the Res Gala, now with Signature Brew, like those venues are like synonymous with that company. So you see a picture and you're like, oh, that's the Res Gala. Or you're like, oh, that's the Bread Shed, and you know what company is there.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really important for a promotion and a promoter to have that, like, because I think like as we all know, we're working off a shoestring budget as well, and even the bigger promotions are working to they're not working to huge production budget. So I think to have somewhere where you can call your own, that you can put your own spin on, I think it's really important. I think, but what I will say, we did have a bit of bother when we went there. There was another local promotion who were running there. There was a bit of miscommunication around whether we could run there or whatever. A venue's a venue. A venue's only good if you're running a good show in it. So you could have the best venue in the world.
Yeah.
But unless your show's really running there, it doesn't matter. You could have, it wouldn't ever happen, but you could have Resurgence, TNT, you could have Eve, you have Catch, you could have us, and you could all, BWR, you could all we could all just run a weekend in the same venue, but we'd run really different shows, and you would be able to tell that. So I think that's really important to it as well. It's like you've got to. Yes, I think it's important for a promotion to have its own home, but unless you make that your own, then it's not going to work out. So
no, absolutely, and again, a huge part of that is the fans as well. Talk to me about the fans at North, because just from what I've seen in terms of video footage, they seem great. And anyone who knows sport generally will know how passionate people in Newcastle are about their sport, about football, things like that. Like, is it the same for you guys at North? Do you see that? Do you see that like passion in the crowd?
Yeah, definitely, without that. And that's like, I think that really came to a head at the last show where it was really loud, and it is a place to come for. It's been difficult because like we've always wanted to encourage like a raucous kind of atmosphere, and one of the things that we get criticised for it, but I think it's a real strength of ours, is that we bring quite a lot of non-wrestling or non-traditional wrestling fans in. So we've become a bit more of a destination kind of night out, like a big event. That you will get people who don't go to any other wrestling shows and just come to ours. And I think that just adds to the atmosphere. So like I think the atmosphere is just like going to a gig or going to a football match or but the hardest part of that is then containing that and not letting it slip into just like bedlam or like, especially when we've got very clear set of, we have a fan code of conduct. And we've got a clear like we've got a clear kind of what we do and don't expect of people. So obviously we've had issues in the crowd. We've had, but not so much now, but way back when, where we really had to like hone that. And I think we've really had to like take a strong stand and say, we don't want any of this shit. Like, yes, you can be raucous, but control yourself.
Yeah.
You can't have that as well. That exists. You don't have to go into this whole realm of like, not saying we've had this type of stuff, but racism, homophobia, sexism, all of that type of misogyny and everything. you don't have to do that, and also respect other people's boundaries as well with COVID. So we've had a few incidents more around respecting people's boundaries and kind of people getting a little bit over the top. But we're able to deal with them there and then. You know, we're able to deal with this with the safeguarding that we've put in place. We're able to kind of deal with these things there and then. And I think what we've now got is a really loud, passionate fan base who respect each other and kind of understand this is a place like where you can just go and enjoy yourself and let your hair down. And so we've definitely been able to cultivate that, and they're absolutely brilliant. They're so as someone who wasn't great at public speaking, they've been so encouraging of me. And then we had Jen Louise come in and take over from Tom Campbell, which is not any. It's like the hardest job. For anyone
big shoes to fill. Yeah.
I mean, he is the best in the business at MCing, without a doubt, and I'll stand by that. And I'll argue, till the cows come home with anyone. There is no better MC than Tom Campbell in British wrestling, and you'd be pushed to find a better one over in America as well. And then I'd say that the same with him on commentary as well. Like, so he's an absolutely brilliant commentator. So I think, for Jen to then step into that, she has her own following and she's well known and she's had the experience. She's really good at what she does. The crowd just took to her. I mean, you have to be good to allow that to happen, but yeah, it's nice to have cultivated that kind of really encouraging, but also raucous and mad at times crowd. Yeah, they're brilliant.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was going to ask you a bit about Tom as well, because obviously, you guys as a promotion and as the fans gave him such a great send off on his last show. And that's got to be really nice, because obviously I think a lot of people don't consider the MC as much, you know what I mean? MCs in a lot of companies will generally sort of come and go, and it's more about the wrestlers. If a big wrestler leaves or something, the fans will really feel that. But it says a lot about you guys and the atmosphere and what you've cultivated there. The fact that the MC going in Tom, and obviously he's again a big name in terms of social media and YouTube, things like that. But the fact that him leaving had that effect on the fans and on you guys as well.
Yeah, I mean, the mad thing about North is I'll go to the show and I don't get as much time as I'd like to, but I can still see 10, 15, 20 people, and there's probably more than that, who came to the very, very first show in 2016 and have pretty much been to, if not all of them, 95% of the shows.
Yeah.
So they've encouraged us and supported us from day one, and I now kind of know them and speak to them and say hi to them on a regular basis. Bringing Tom in, he just cultivated that further. It was a no-brainer. I became friends with Tom through wrestling, and then brought him on the show. He did a thing called the Question of North, which was our pre-show segment, and that became really popular, and the fans really got into that. So when Tom left, it was like part of the family left. When it was I don't like using that term, family. I think it gets a bit kind of conceited when people use it over and over. We're a big family, but we are a bunch of mates. And there's a lot of them who are a bunch of mates. And me and Tom, and so there's a bunch of people on the show who've worked since day one. There's me and Carl, who's my mate from school, who cues all the music. And then we've had Rory Coyle's been on it, HT Drake's been on the show, Liam's been on the show pretty much since the start. And then we've got Chop, who came in a bit later, who cues the videos. And then there's Tom, and between us we all became really, really close. Kirsten does the videos as well, she's been on since the start as well. So I understand that the sum of all parts are greater than the individual. So it's the MC is just, but to be honest, Carl cueing the music is just as important as me sorting the show out. If I don't have him, I'll have to have somebody else who comes in who doesn't really know how to do it. We have to train them up. And doesn't have that connection that we've been able to create. And same with Chop, and same with the wrestler that we use on the show. It's same with the ring crew. We've had really similar ring crew since 2016. And you kind of like you said, MCs get forgotten about, but Tom really made the atmosphere at the show. He really created our identity. He was a massive, massive part of that identity. And the show goes on, and our identity will now change. You got to give him his dues. You got to give him his props.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And well, you've spoken a bit in the past about why you wanted to set up North and things like that.
Mm.
In terms of just like for anyone who may not know, just in terms of like an abridged version, I mean, what was it like setting up North in the fact that am I right in thinking sort of when you started your debut show, like WCPW up there had been going for a little while already.
Yeah, well, yeah. So I'll correct you on that one. We started advertising our show, and we had Will Ospreay on it, and then so we say we started advertising in the March or whenever it was. It might have been earlier than that.
Right.
Literally as we started, then WCPW started,
okay.
and they got their first show in. And to be fair, they got about 4 or 5 shows in before we got to our show. So yeah, that took the wind out of ourselves somewhat.
Yeah.
And then
that's what I was going to say. Yeah, that was that because obviously I wanted to know in terms of was it you being like, oh, there's a market for another promotion here, or it was literally just an overlap and sort of that sort of bad timing, I guess.
Yeah, it was more bad timing than anything else. So I had seen the ICW shows that they ran in Newcastle, and went and looked at the other shows that were around here, and there was MEW that's been running for 16 to 20 years. There was Absolute Wrestling at the time that were running, and they ran around the corner. I lived in a place called North Shields, so they ran often in North Shields. And I'd go to their shows quite a lot, so I actually tried to work for them. And at the time, I was like, why wouldn't they let me work for them? And I was like, well, they don't know me. And now that the influx of people that we get trying to work for North, I can understand why they didn't just take me on. I was a stranger to them. So I just decided to go, like, I tell you what, then, there's a real market. Rather than me do like more family-friendly stuff, there's plenty of that happening at a really good standard around here. I wanted to do an adult show. I wanted to do something that was really specific. I wanted to, I had a real clear vision. I don't think I realized brought the vision to reality until maybe 4 or 5 years after. But like, I knew exactly what we were doing, we wanted to do. So yeah, so we'd start. I gave myself 6 months to promote the first show, and I kind of thought, first show, let's just see. I'll put a couple of grand up, like, let's see whether it works. And if it doesn't work, that was great, wasn't it? It's nice to run a show. Obviously, well, I'm sitting here now. But so in the interim of that, WCPW started just before we got our first show. They then started using Will Ospreay. I'm not saying any shenanigans took place or anything like that, but Will Ospreay then pulled out the day before our show. So you can see on the video, and like there was like 170 people in, and we're probably waiting for Will Ospreay. We obviously announced that he wasn't coming, but like, I mean, that's a very short lead-in time. I think it was maybe 24 hours before the show, maybe, when he pulled out. You can see between show 1 there was 160, 170 people there. Show 2 there was 85. I can see what's happened here. But yes, so WCPW started, and then that was quite difficult because I think I don't know whether they were competing with us, but I was certainly competing with them.
They were getting big names in, weren't they? They were like really pushing the boat out.
Yeah, and they went quite quick from like. They ran a really cool venue, which I don't think exists anymore, in a place called Holt Yard. I think they had maybe 200-300 people there for their first show, and they used the best of BritWres. I think Big Damo was there. Killian Dane, as he came up to be, was there. Can't remember. I think that was probably the biggest name that they had.
Yeah, they had a few guests, didn't they? They had like Mysterio on a show, and like Angle and like Cody and stuff like that.
So then it went from that, which I was like, right, we're gonna have to compete with these guys, to like Bret Hart appeared on the show.
Yeah. And you're like, how do we do this? How do we compete with this?
It's like, this isn't going to happen. And like, their shows were getting like 1 million views on YouTube and shit like that. And we were like, 500 views, and we're lucky. And so what actually probably happened was, I think a lot of people would think that you could use that to your advantage. We did use that to our advantage. Having a bigger promotion there, we've flyered that. We've just constantly would go out and flyer their queues and stuff like that outside the O2. But I think the weird thing about wrestling fans is I guess it's like anything in life. It's like you've got first adopters, and then you've got those who will come when the crowd's already there, or when the show is kind of more packaged up. And I think you've then got a slice of wrestling fans who are just only interested in high production, high quality, big named wrestling shows. So WCPW, or Defiant as it ended up coming, was exactly that for them. So, but then I always see it as like, you book Cody Rhodes, or you book Bullet Club, you book Kurt Angle, you book Bret Hart, you book Eric Bischoff. It's like, where do you go from there?
Yeah,
So when you're doing like
you've already hit the peak.
Yeah, I mean, how many ex WWF guys, WWE guys are going to get in from the Attitude Era? So I feel that's what happened to them, and then they try to pivot to a more kind of like local based stuff. So you had like Rory Coyle was champion. He did really well because him and Rampage Brown had a great feud. They did live pay-per-views and they were doing really well at that point. But then they started to kind of like, I mean, that's when Rory Coyle got in the PWI 500, which I think everyone forgets. I think that was great. What an effort that is.
Yeah.
In 2018. And then they tried to like kind of pivot slightly and use more local guys and build their own guys up. And that slice of guys who were waiting for Bischoff or Bubba Ray Dudley or Moose, or they just all disappeared.
Yeah, because they're all about the big names. Yeah,
exactly. So you've then got like, so then we're kind of like, I think we did we definitely didn't ride off the coattails, but we like it helped us a little bit in terms of cultivating more of a wrestling audience.
Yeah, because you already had that die-hard audience who weren't just there for the big names.
Yeah, exactly. And they would go to both of our shows. Yeah. There's no problem with that. So our attendances got back up to about 160 up to 200. And we were doing pretty well. And then obviously Defiant, I think they just run out of money. Like I think they ran out of steam. And we've been able to, and I think we're only just recently getting those ex WCPW fans from around here coming to see our show and go, oh, okay, like Joe Henry was on that show, Connor's appeared at a show, and they're massive Defiant WCPW names. So all of a sudden we're kind of, oh right, okay, this thing is really good, and there's like a fan base here already. So I think you got people who either like to be there first and they like to then see it grow. Or you've got people who will come once it's kind of ready and all the bells and whistles are on it and stuff like that. So Defiant was fun.
But that must be nice in terms of like I know you said you were sort of like competing with them a little, but not in terms of like a killing the competition thing, not in terms of like a Vince McMahon like I killed WCW sort of thing. But in terms of the fact that it got off to that sort of rocky start for you guys in the sense that you set up and there was this company bringing in these big names, sort of drawing those crowds.
Yeah.
And then like obviously again not in terms of killing the competition, but then like again like you say 6 years later you guys are still here and you're still thriving. That must be a really nice feeling considering that you could see it as quite a rocky start for the promotion.
Yeah, definitely. And I think at the start of that, I mean, what nobody would have seen is me finding out the WCPW were running, and me with my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, and me just going, I'm just going to pack this in. Like, what is the point? Like, why am I doing this? And genuinely, probably walked around sulking for 2 days.
Yeah.
With the idea of, I'm not going to bother doing it. The money I've lost is the money I've lost, and we'll just cancel the show. But then I think as time went on, it was that thing again of going back to going like, well, we can provide something different, and kind of seeing their product and going like, I see where they're going. We can provide, something that is smaller, but it's a different thing altogether. And so to look at that to where we are now, even if I think if Progress rolled into town or Red Pro came into town, I don't think it would affect us in any way, shape, or form. And I think even if another promotion came in and tried to set up, I think they'd really struggle with it against us now. Like I think that's how organically we've built our audience.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that cocky when I say arrogantly when I say that. It's just because it's taken me a long time to really believe in that. Like to get to that point to actually go, oh, actually, like. I've got real confidence in what our show is and certainly where we are. So yeah, it is really nice to kind of still be here 6 years later. And I definitely didn't think that would be the case.
No, for sure. But in terms of, again, you mentioned another company coming into town, maybe not necessarily competing with you guys, but have you guys ever considered some sort of like cross-promotional thing? Because there's a few of those going on at the minute. There seems to be a lot more of those happening now.
I'd love to do it. I think it's a case of like, how do you work out logistically? And I do think, unfortunately, I still think there's a bit of competition in promotions, which I do understand it because I've been in protection mode.
Yeah,
I think you kind of want to protect your own product, which is
you don't want your top stars to be like just run over by theirs or something like.
Yeah, and then I guess you get such like, I mean, G Money, for example, just to pull a name out of there. I mean. Would he wrestle for North? Would he wrestle for Resurgence? Would he wrestle for do you know what I mean? Like it's like he wrestles everywhere.
Yeah, I mean I don't know if you saw it, but we did like a cross promotional like fantasy feud like article, And like on that, I was really struggling because I was like, oh, there's so many guys here that like you could put as like this place or this place.
Yeah, and I mean that's the sign of a good scene, right? So that's the sign of a healthy scene, that you've got. Again, just using Gene as the example, you've got someone who's really popular, who is a draw across multiple different promotions and is working around the country. So yeah, don't get me wrong, like it's something I've always wanted to do. Like I think but it's just working out how it works. How it works. I've talked to, I'm probably being too open here, but I've talked to the promotions about doing a tournament of some sort. And I'd love to do that. So actually, I'm putting it out there now, so that if it ever happens, it's my idea.
If anyone's thinking of it, yeah.
Like I would love to do something like that, kind of like where, you can bring wrestlers from other promotions to our promotion. You do like away games or whatever. I don't know, but I think there might be a general reticence to do that, because as soon as even though you've got like. I mean, Rory Coyle, as an example of somebody who is like, he works for TNT, he works for North, he works for BWR. So really, he works, and he works for like Rise and places like that as well. So really, he works for like 3 of the biggest promotions outside of probably the top 2. And I would say we're kind of catching up on their coattails as well. Certainly, us and TNT are very much like catching their coattails, catching them up a little bit. But definitely nipping at their heels with Progress and Rev Pro. But, for me, I don't think he gets used enough elsewhere. And you wonder whether that is just because he's so synonymous with us and other promotions.
Yeah.
It's difficult to kind of then transplant them into other ones. So you can kind of understand with cross-promotion, whilst from a promoter and probably from a fan's point of view, it'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? To like do something like that. But then from a wrestler and a logistical point of view, maybe it might not quite work, because wrestlers want to wrestle everywhere.
Yeah.
So tying their colours to the mast of one promotion is probably maybe it's detrimental. I don't know.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and no, but sure, and that's something that we've spoken to again a few other wrestlers about, in terms of not in terms of just promotional, but sort of like the north-south divide that there is in BritWres. And we I think it was a chat with Alexis Falcon we first had. Around Survivor Series, and I asked her to book her ultimate like North v South Survivor Series style match.
Yeah,
and that got me thinking, like, no one's done that yet, and a North v South cross promotional thing, like obviously it wouldn't necessarily be cross promotion; it would just literally be the best wrestlers in the South versus the best in the North. That would be a hell of a show as well.
Well, that's what the concept of North was to start off with. The whole idea, and I'm glad I didn't follow through with it, because I think to run a promotion like that would be silly. But the idea was the idea that we started off with North was Northeast. I know I'll not go into it because it'll bore people who are not from the Northeast, but I will say the Northeast gets forgotten about massively. And I did it in my last show. I don't know if you saw the intro at the start. And we do get forgotten about up here because it's difficult to get up here. So I do understand, like, if you're based down south, to get a train ticket up here, because I know how much it costs to go down there. You're talking 120 quid for a return train, and that's a good price.
Yeah.
So it is that's the one thing that is I find tough about North, is like we are very disconnected from like if we were based in the Midlands or even Manchester, where there's a lot more like it's just easier to get to.
Yeah.
But I think so we started off as kind of going like there's a lot of good wrestlers up here who don't get their chances outside because it just costs more on X's, simply put. So we wanted to spend a bit of money bringing in wrestlers from the South, bring wrestlers from the Midlands, and we did that. Would you be able to do it now? I mean, like madly enough, and it might just be because I exist in the North. I genuinely think the North is now. I mean, don't get me wrong, because there's some fantastic Southern-based wrestlers, but if you're looking pound for pound in terms of just the sheer amount of quality wrestlers that we have up in the North now, it's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable.
I'm from the South. Like, I'm Brighton born and bred, just moved to London, and like even I'd say that I think the North scene is just, if you were to separate the North and South of BritWres into 2 separate like entities, and then put them up against any other sort of indie area in the world, I'd say the North is right up there, like top 3.
Yeah, and I think the Northwest is really kicked on, and then and then I think like the work that Liam Slater's doing at PPW, like Crash Boat. I don't have to. I just absolutely love that team.
Crash
they're
Boat are
absolutely
great. I mean, they just said the best things about you guys as well, like the
Yeah,
pitch
yeah. I mean, that
stuff.
was really nice. Like, for them to do. I didn't even pay them to say that, which was even nicer. Jake's just a lovely, lovely, lovely man. But yeah, Crash Boat are fantastic, and I think like Leon Slater, he made his debut at the last show, and he's just fucking brilliant as well. And you know, like I think because there's been I mean, we've been going for 6 years. Rise have been going for quite a while, even though they're doing more of the deathmatchy stuff at the minute. But they've been going around for a long time. You've got TNT have been going for ages. I mean, that's not really the north, but we'll let them. That's quite south Liverpool. But and then you've got like over in Manchester, you've got like Future Shock, and now Catch as well. So you've got like this real like you've got some really good promotions up here, and you've got some really good shows. So I think you're starting to see that like. You are starting to see a lot of really good wrestlers come from the north.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, yeah. And you sort of mentioned it we sort of picked up on it with venue-wise, and you mentioned it sort of in terms of speaking about Rory there, in the fact that, you know, as well as venues, but like promotions do have certain wrestlers who are synonymous with that company. Like you think of, again, like for someone who's London-based, just off the top of my head, you think of Eve and you think like Jetta and Charlie Morgan and people like that. Or like Catch, newly formed, but you've still got like Lizzie and Tom Thelwell and like, you know, people who are synonymous with that company, you know, Tidal, Brady Phillips and Will Cruz.
Yeah.
But like, so what my question to you would be, because I know who I'd have in my mind, but my question to you would be, who would you think, if you had to say like, pick maybe 3 or 4, who would you say are the pillars of North wrestling?
Yeah, so I mean, without a doubt, it's Rory Coyle for me, number one. You know, there's a lot. I'm gonna address a lot of rumors because there's a lot of rumors between the wrestlers that he actually books the show. I just think that's an absolute disgrace. Like, I put a lot of time and effort into it, but he's somebody, he's somebody outside of wrestling that he's become a real close friend of mine. Anyway, but he gives as much of a shit about North, maybe not as much as me, but just as much as a shit about North succeeding than anybody else.
Yeah.
So, without a doubt, him right at the top of that. I'd say, obviously, I think in terms of, I think Liam's up there, Liam Slater. I mean, there's quite. So I think Liam Slater and HT Drake would sit there. HT Drake, as everyone knows, does the ring. He's in the ring every show, and he's wrestled on every show that we've ever done. He hasn't missed one. So I'd be completely remiss to not say him. And Liam as well, because both of those guys are just people that I kind of trust in what they do. It's just supported me massively in what we're doing here. I think we've now got coming through is obviously Gia Adams. I think she was Gemini before she wrestled around here. We helped her kind of with a name and a brand and kind of like helped her kind of just be a bit more of herself and allow that to come out a little bit more. And now you see that she's just kind of gone everywhere as well. So and we had a match with her and Lizzie ever like at the last show, which we built up over, and it was just like the crowd were just.
Oh, I saw some clips on Twitter, and obviously we had the guys in the Pop the Boys podcast do the review for us, and like they said, and like the clips showed, like the crowd was mental for that. That was like a great match.
Yeah, and that is just like when you see that happening, and like Gia's someone that we put a lot of time and effort into as well to kind of. I mean, she's the only girl in the Northeast as well, like which is just such a shame. Which is something that Northern Grafter, which is HT Drake's school, is trying to change that. It's something that we've wanted to do for a long time. Is try and change the fact that there's one female wrestler from the Northeast.
Yeah,
it's not okay. So to be able to push her to that point has been really important. I think Shreddy goes in there as well because he's been very much like someone that we gave his debut to. And I think if you looked at him, he was a face, and he was like comedy face, to where he's come back and where he is now. I think he'll be the first to say there's still a lot of improvement that he can achieve. But that just tells you the kind of potential that he's got. I think in terms of the way that the crowd react to him up here, it's like nothing else. So yeah, I think there. I mean, there's plenty of other guys that you could put in there who. The list could go on and on and on, but they're the guys who I think I would say off the top of my head are kind of like the bedrock of it at the minute.
And you mentioned I was going to bring up Gia as well because you mentioned just plenty about her there, but in terms of the fact that you know, she's doing fantastic now, like all over the country. She's getting some fantastic bookings, having fantastic matches. But it
Yeah.
must be really nice, almost again like with people like HT and with Rory, to have people that sort of like you've championed and pushed and sort of helped develop, to see them thriving across the country. That must be a really nice feeling for you as a promoter.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it's so important to be able to do that as a local promotion. Like, you've got to be able to make sure that you make a platform for your guys. So, I think we really spent a lot of time making sure they look like $1 million when they're here, because we know what they can do. And I think, you know, they won't get a better reaction than they get on their home turf. That's just the way that goes. But it gives them a good platform to build off, and hopefully, you know, that's why we started. I mean, one person I forgot to mention, because she hasn't wrestled over here for a while now, but Roxy as well. She's another person that would go in there, and I think again she was the only female at the time. Her and Gia were the only females, and I think if it hadn't been for her, you wouldn't have Gia Adams. So I think seeing all of those guys on a bigger stages, for me, starting out in the Northeast and understanding how difficult it was to get out the Northeast for a long time. It's ideal. It's perfect. And that's kind of that's what we need to do as a promotion, is we need to be able to give these guys the opportunity here to hone their skills more, get better, so that they can go off on a national scale and show what they can do.
Yeah, for sure. No, absolutely. We're going to move on to like another sort of like a short feature we've got here called What's in a Name. And normally I ask wrestlers how they got their ring name. Now, your name as a promotion is fairly obvious, like North, because you're in the North. So what I want to know is, why is it all caps?
It's all caps, and I wish more people would pick on this. We even did a show called All Caps, and still people don't put it in all caps, and 6 years on. So for me, honestly, I really got back into wrestling. There's a friend of mine who I worked with a long time ago. I think it was the CM Punk pipeline. That seemingly got most people of my age back into wrestling. But so that was about 2011. But just before that, it was a friend of mine who got us into pro wrestling Noah. And simply put, well, there's 2 reasons. They capitalized Noah, so I was like, well, that looks cool. Let's capitalize it. It kind of looks the same. But it was more along the lines of, if you're driving up the A1, whatever I'm really bad with road names, but if you're coming up north, you will see signs that say the North.
The North, yeah, I know the signs well, yeah.
Yeah, so it was off that. That's pretty much where that came from. Yeah.
Nice, I like that. Yeah, no, I hadn't thought about that at all. But like seeing it, you get it coming down south as well. It says the South, and I was like, that's really weird. Like, it's just they've just grouped the entire area into one thing.
Yeah. It's just like, we're going up the north, and it's like, we're it's very different. The Northeast is very different to Yorkshire and Northwest and whatever. But yeah, I think that was the name, the reason behind it, and it was kind of. There's a part of me which wishes we called it something else. It's easier to kind of like maneuver around the rest of the country. But I do think it's something that really made us stand out. Like, it's a bit combative. I think it kind of like, I think it'll probably put off some people, but that's okay as well. So.
But again, there's not going to be, again, you see North, and there's not going to be any question as to where it is. You're not going to be like, oh, that must be in like Bristol or something.
Yeah, exactly. But if we ever want to do a show in Bristol, it might look a bit weird.
No, then it could be like North comes South.
Yeah, that's true.
And that'll be there you go. You got a show name there, so take that. Feel free to have that. But yeah, I mean, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat to me. We're just sort of winding down now, but obviously I couldn't have you on the show without talking a bit of fantasy booking. So I'm going to say you've got a North card. We won't go a full like sort of 6, 7 matches. We'll go say 4 matches.
Yeah.
And if you could have say 4, like we were talking about, sort of four North pillars, or like maybe 3 singles matches and a tag match. Each one has to involve, like you said, a pillar of North, a North standout.
Okay.
Versus any indie star you want. It can be from BritWres, it can be from America, it can be from Australia, wherever you want. Let's say budget's no option, money's no option. Like, you can bring in whoever you want. Who are you going to put those North regulars against to really make them shine?
Okay, right, we're on the spot here. Right, so let's stick with. I'm probably going to need your help a little bit, but let's go with it. So if we go with Rory Coyle, right, I think he has to be up against, like, I don't know. I think it would be someone like, I don't know, PCO or something like that.
Yeah, like someone like, hardcore heavy and like.
Yeah, exactly. But what I would this is real fantasy booking. I would say PCO is managed by Jake the Snake. Or we can interchange the managers, whichever way it works, and then Rory Coyle will be managed by Mick Foley.
Nice.
So we'd have a bit of a. But I know how much Rory Coyle likes both of them, so maybe we'd have to have. Maybe he could turn and he's Jake, because I know how much he loves Jake. So, but yeah. So I think that would be the main bit of fantasy booking in there. I love PCO as well. He'd do all the dives for Rory as well and do mad shit. Okay, so Shreddy, easy. Oh, he's not wrestling at the minute, but Scott Steiner. So
just so jacked. What a match! Be all muscle.
Yeah, exactly. Just a big hoss match. I think we could do a parent angle if Scott Steiner really Shreddy's dad. But if it wasn't Scott Steiner, because he's not wrestling at the minute, as far as I'm aware, it could be someone like, so again, another hoss fight, like a Jacob Fatu or like a Hammerstone or something like that. Like something like that would be pretty cool. So then Gia Adams, who would I have against Gia Adams? I'd love to see. I mean, I tell you something. It's not so much a dream booking, but there's somebody. Actually, there's quite a few. I really like Maxine Paler. I think Max is brilliant.
Yeah.
I also like Masha Slamovich as well.
Yeah, Masha against Gia would be incredible.
Yeah, I think that would be excellent. Or I don't know if they kind of, maybe you could do like Masha and Max versus Gia and Ali Catch. Like, I really like Ali Catch, so that would be excellent. And then I guess you've got like, let's just do a classic North. I've booked too many people on the show, so let's do a multi-man match.
Nice.
So you've got Liam, H.G. Drake, and then let's put Effie in there. I'd love to have Effie at a North show.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's do that. I'm trying to think of anyone. There's so many people that I'd love to book. My mind's going blank. I'd love to see. Let's stick Alex Zane in there, because I'm a big fan of Alex Zane.
That would be cool.
Alex Zane, yeah.
Nice.
So that would be really cool. Yeah, so that would be a good match.
There we go. That would be a great card as well. Oh my god, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fab.
Bank balance might look a little low on that one.
After that, you'll be checking your bank account like, oh no.
Yeah.
Was it really that much? Oh.
Yeah, shit! I did book Mick Foley and Jake the Snake as managers. I think, that was probably a mistake.
That would do it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Amazing. Well, we can't wait to see that card. And Andrew, thanks so much for taking the time to come on and chat to us today. No, it's been great. Thank you for anyone watching as well, if you stuck around this long. It's been great getting to know about North and the insight behind it and stuff like that.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me.
No, of course. And we always end the show by giving our guests a little bit of promo time. We do it for all the wrestlers, so it'd be unfair to not give a bit of promo time to yourselves. So if anyone sees North on Twitter or social media or that, or is just up northeast, up in Newcastle for the weekend, because Newcastle's a great party town anyway, or party city.
It is. It's a very good party town.
So if anyone sees an advert for North and thinks, you know what, I'll check that out, why should they come and check out North Wrestling? All caps.
Well, North Wrestling, I think, we are our own unique show. My favourite thing about it is it's a variety show. So I think with everything we have a bit of everything on it. So you will get your kind of, we had Haskins versus Gabe Kidd at the last show as the main event, but we also had Commander Sterling make their debut. You have, Shreddy. It might be a complete dickhead who's able to kind of like rile the crowd up, but a great wrestler as well. So I think there's something for everything, and no show's ever going to be 100% up your street, but I guarantee you'll not be bored. You'll get kind of like that. You'll get that gig vibe, kind of crossed with a football match, kind of crossed with nicely kept in line with the wrestling ideals in the wrestling community. And genuinely, like, if you come, I honestly know that you'll love it. Like, I know anyone who comes to a show will really enjoy it. Plus, there's great beers. What else do you want?
That's crucial, isn't it? That's crucial. The show snacks where it's at.
Exactly. Oh yeah, we have pizza. We have pizza there as well. There's a pizza truck there. So
nice.
2J's Pizza do pizza, and they've got I can't even remember what the name is, but we have our own beer there, Pale Driver beer. So yeah, you've got beer, pizza, and wrestling.
That is the holy trinity, isn't it? Really,
it is. The trifecta of the most amazing things in the world.